Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Let's jump right into it. Have you ever actually stopped to think about how kind of wild it is that we celebrate a 250-year-old piece of parchment by blowing up massive explosives in the sky? Well, today we are unpacking the history and, honestly, the sheer spectacle behind fireworks and freedom.
So here is the big question, right? Why do we celebrate freedom with fire? We're going to trace this really cinematic journey, starting from the quiet scratching of a quill pen on the Declaration of Independence, all the way to the booming, sky-painting modern spectacle we all know and love today.
All right, let's kick things off with part one, the wrong date.
Okay, picture this. It is a sweltering, sticky summer in Philadelphia, 1776. The Founding Fathers are in this room arguing, sweating, and basically making a decision that's either going to birth a brand new nation or, frankly, sign their own death warrants. Let's walk through the timeline here, because the date we actually celebrate is one of those great, wait, really? Moments in history. On July 1st, the Continental Congress is debating independence. On July 2nd, the delegates officially vote in favor of it. The deed is done. Then, on July 3rd, John Adams is so hyped, he writes to his wife Abigail with this famous prediction about the holiday. It wasn't until July 4th that the document's final text was actually approved and sent to the printer, which means John Adams was absolutely 100% convinced that the 2nd of July would be our great anniversary festival.
And his letter from July 3rd perfectly captures his mindset. He wrote, "It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade. Guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other, from this time forward forevermore." Now, what is super fascinating here is that word illuminations. Back in the 18th century, that was the literal term for fireworks. The guy practically predicted the exact way we'd celebrate our freedom.
But he was off by exactly 2 days. See, because the public got their hands on those printed broadsides that were officially dated July 4th, well, that was the date that permanently stuck. So while Adams hit the nail on the head with how we'd celebrate, history ironically shifted the whole party back by 48 hours.
Moving on to part two, 13 rockets of defiance.
Fast forward to the very first anniversary in 1777. The reality on the ground is, well, it's incredibly grim. On July 4th, the war is still actively raging. The Continental Army is totally exhausted, and British forces are literally occupying New York. It is a dangerous, highly uncertain time. But over in Philadelphia, the citizens decide to just throw a massive party anyway. It was this spontaneous, totally defiant burst of joy right in the face of an existential threat.
Just imagine how they celebrated. The Delaware River was absolutely packed with ships beautifully dressed up in the colors of all nations. Armed vessels are firing off these booming 13-gun salutes that echo right across the water. Down in the streets, you've got spontaneous parades of light horse and artillery units. It was definitely a heavily military display, but an incredibly joyful one too. And as the sun went down, John Adams actually noted the splendid illumination of the city, with nearly every single window glowing with candlelight.
But the true grand finale? That happened up in the night sky. The evening wrapped up with a fireworks display that both started and ended with exactly 13 rockets, firing straight into the darkness to represent the 13 colonies. Every single explosion was this booming, undeniable reminder of the parchment they had signed just 1 year earlier.
Which brings us to part three, a democratic spectacle.
You see, those 13 rockets didn't just look cool. They actually changed the entire symbolism of fireworks forever. Think about it. For centuries, fireworks strictly belonged to European kings. They were the ultimate flexes of monarchical power, of empire building, of divine authority. They were literally controlled explosions designed to remind the citizens exactly who ruled the sky. But in America, fireworks got completely repurposed. They transformed into a symbol of inherent freedom, of liberty, and the sheer power of the people. They no longer belong to a crown, they belong to democracy.
Think of it kind of like a giant metaphor, a spark within every human being bursting free. That is the whole core idea of the Declaration of Independence, right? That all men are created equal and liberty is just a natural right. The firework actually became the emotional embodiment of that very idea. It's light bursting free, sound rolling outward, energy refusing to be confined. It visually proves to us that freedom is definitely not quiet.
All right, let's get into the science in part 4, painting the night sky. Okay, so we've got the symbolism down, but what about the actual colors? Well, if you were standing there in Philadelphia in 1777, the illuminations you saw were mostly just fountains of monochromatic golden sparks and, really loud explosions. 18th century fireworks completely lacked the vibrant hues we're so used to seeing today. I mean, they were definitely impressive for the time, for sure, but visually, pretty limited.
Thankfully, science eventually evolved to fix that whole problem. Pre-1830s fireworks relied on this ancient mix of potassium nitrate, sulfur, and charcoal, which is what gave you those single-color booms. But then in the 1830s, Italian inventors made an absolute game-changer of a breakthrough. They started adding metal salts to the incendiary mixtures. We're talking strontium for red, barium for green, elements that finally gave crowds those brilliant palettes of color. Suddenly, the night sky could literally be painted in glittering shades of red, white, and blue.
Which leaves us with this final, kind of powerful question to chew on. Every time we watch the sky light up on the 4th of July, are we fulfilling a 250-year-old promise? Every time a shell breaks in the night sky, we are actually honoring John Adams' incredible prophecy from that sticky, sweltering summer of 1776. The Declaration of Independence might have been written in ink, but it has always been celebrated by fire. So next time you hear that boom and see those colors wash over the crowd, remember the whole shebang of what it really represents, the enduring, unstoppable power of American independence. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep on learning.